What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about Bitcoin Cash today. Shout out to the Dragon Riders in the House of the Dragon. Hit that like button and subscribe. Thank you all for being here. It is the 17th day of February, and here we are sitting at about $563 with roughly 9 hours and 44 minutes left in the day. Yesterday, we did something that was rather unexpected, at least on my behalf. It was unexpected. We had somewhat of a bullish engulfing candle. It was a pretty good day. It's a very big wick to the upside. Don't get me wrong. This could be a signal that we do come down lower, but this was certainly not the expectations. I did not see this coming. And oftentimes, I'd even say, whenever something directly opposite of your expectations happens, that might mean that it's time to recalculate your expectations. Maybe it's just a fake out. Maybe it's just some type of false price action to cause some FOMO before we move back down to this 540 level. Maybe. But let's look at the short-term stuff and see maybe I went wrong somewhere. I want to see where I went wrong, and if we should expect some more upside relatively soon. Now, what I will say is, while that was a nice little day, you moved up 3%, nothing too crazy, and a lot of cryptos moved down. You're up a little bit higher, making progress, getting higher daily closes. You didn't really have a lot of volume. We're still consolidating, so the idea of pulling back here can still happen, even if I wasn't expecting us to go higher than this high here, whatever. But let's look at the short-term stuff and see if there's anything that makes sense for us to go higher. Maybe we're not going lower. Let's see. Let's see. And again, whenever I say lower, I'm expecting that we find support here. Maybe we go lower, but we'd still find a higher low overall. You know, it's still going to be fine one way or another. But let's look at this on the short term, and then we'll zoom out. Okay. 1 hour time frame here. Very wonky stuff. Again, we had this like double top here. This weird little like double top at these areas of finding resistance as well. I would have thought we'd reject down, but man, we sent it, and then we came right back down. Very weird price action. For what it's worth, for what it's worth though, there is a good bit of volume coming into this pump here, and at the top. The RSI is neutral. The price action is neutral. Sideways and choppy, you're not going to get good readings on the RSI or the stochastics or the MACD. The stochastics look bullish here. The RSI is neutral, and overall, sure, it looks bullish here. The MACD technically looks bullish here too, but I'm not going to hold my breath over that or count on that. See, that's the tricky part. I feel like the short-term stuff is what will tell us what will tell us about screwy stuff like this happening. But whenever we're just being screwy in general, it's kind of hard. I don't know. It's kind of hard. I would not have expected rejecting the overbought zone twice here to just come up again, but we rejected it a third time nonetheless. I still think we're going to go lower. I still do, just looking at this overall. 4 hour time frame here, rejecting the overbought zone, even with that little lift yesterday, rejecting it still. Stochastics look bearish. The MACD is bullish overall. This is what makes me think, again, that we're not in any kind of serious trouble. We can keep coming down to the zero. Maybe we'll find a slightly lower low, and then we'll bounce from there, right? Stochastics will be oversold. RSI might be oversold, and then we bounce from there as well. Nothing too crazy. Just like this 535 to 540 area, something in that 545, something in that kind of area. That's what I expect. A slightly lower low than what we had here. Nothing too crazy. Daily time frame, looking at this, daily RSI is very neutral as well. It's like you want to be bullish, but you just can't do it. Getting oversold, not getting overbought, that's not good. But here you do look strong. That's nice to see. Here we can afford to come down a little bit and still look strong, right? We can still have this higher low, higher high kind of dynamic going on. Stochastics look bullish. The MACD is about to move up and cross through the zero. That would be really exciting. That'd actually be really exciting. We can consolidate further. We can move down, and this time the MACD might cool off. These deep green readings that we're getting here might turn into like the pale green readings, right? Whenever it's pale green, typically that's whenever we're consolidating or even moving down. So I could see that happening before we break out. That's all I'm trying to say. The last time that we broke above the zero was here, and it was actually while we were consolidating that we broke through the zero. We didn't actually get too much of a move up because of that break. But then afterwards, the aftermath of breaking through this zero line on the daily MACD promoted weeks worth of growth. It wasn't spectacular, phenomenal growth, but still, it was actually better than most cryptos during that time as well. And I would expect that we do see some phenomenal growth from here, because if we get another month where we're growing like this, like we did back here in November to like January, if we get another month where we're just growing like this, we have a little pop like that, and we keep building, right? stuff like that, we're going to get above this high. And then we're going to be breaking out of this overall range here, which means we're breaking out of this overall range here, which means that we're breaking out of this overall range here, right? It's all the dominoes are in line right here. We're just waiting for them to fall. $563 now. I would love to be wrong and pleasantly surprised. Give us a pump. But I'm calling for 540 specifically, something around there, give or take $10. Probably to the downside, not to the upside. 540, somewhere thereabouts. That's where I think we'll find support. And then we can start talking about the serious prospects of breaking out of this range overall. But again, not financial advice, not a financial advisor. From here to 540, we're not really worried about that. I'm not concerned about that. The main thought that I'm having is definitely what's coming next to the upside. And with that, I'll leave you a little glimpse of what we might see. I'm thinking we're going to see this $3,651 area. If we don't find resistance there, maybe we find resistance here at this closing resistance point on the monthly time frame. That's at $2,300, $2,400. Maybe if we don't find resistance there, we find resistance at the all-time high. If we break through the all-time high, which we really could do in this grand scheme of things, you guys, you look at this. Right, this lifelong, all historic consolidation triangle that we were in, back testing it for support several times, consolidating like this. When we break out, we don't have to stop below this high. We can go through it. And we even have targets that line up in areas that are above this high, which would be at $55 or $5,500, $5,500. Even as high as 10K. I doubt that we get to 10K. I doubt that this one move sends us all the way up to 10K. But you guys, if Bitcoin Cash went from $500 to 10K, the narrative that's going to be alive and well is the Bitcoin Cash is better than Bitcoin narrative, and it's the real Bitcoin narrative. You guys, we're in this world. If I was playing a video game, I might sound like a crazy person to some of you out there, but the Bitcoin Cash community, I'm sure a lot of you guys play video games. Maybe not all of you. I don't really have time for video games. I have kids. It's not that I don't want to play them. People are like, "What? So you don't have interest anymore?" No, I miss video games. I reminisce in the times that I could, but if I have time for video games, man, I have time to do all kinds of stuff like cleaning up messes that my kids have made, and or helping them learn how to clean too. If they're very young, or helping my wife and help that we got so much stuff to do. But I'm not trying to talk about myself. What I'm trying to talk about is that I might sound weird by saying this, but I think I'm approaching the right crowd because a lot of you guys probably play video games. If we were in a video game, if this world was a video game, I would, as an outside person playing, I would understand that in this game, a lot of things that are conspiracies seem to actually be true. They seem to come true. Conspiracy is just another word for hidden truth, right? I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. Do you understand what I'm saying? That there are a lot of, over the years, over the decades, at least of my life, there have been a plethora of conspiracies that have come out to be true, right? Satanic practices in politics, doing weird and demonic shit with children. Like we have evidence of this, literal evidence of this at the DOJ, right? And there's and again, the more conspiracies we go into, maybe the more off the deep end I sound. But like I feel like 9/11 has been proven that conspiracy theory has been proven to be true. There's a lot of validity there. There's a lot of validity in a lot of different conspiracies. We could talk about this for hours. Didn't the government come out and say aliens exist too? Like just there's all this kinds of stuff. All this kinds of stuff. The conspiracy here, in this reality where conspiracies seem to come true and people are catching on to it. Do you guys hear people say that? Do you hear people like Joe Rogan, like famous people who have millions of followers, hundreds of millions of followers, who say these same things, that conspiracy theorists have gone undefeated, right, against the non-conspiracy theorists? It's the non-conspiracy theorists that seem crazy, and people, I feel like that's a prejudice that a lot of people have these days. Maybe not all of you, and maybe to some of you I sound like a crazy person, but if you understand the thought, the process that I'm trying to address here, which is that conspiracy theories tend to come true, and it seems to be the thing. Not all conspiracy theories. Shout out to the flat earthers. That conspiracy theory won't be proven true. The moon landing being fake, that conspiracy theory, there's evidence of that. I still believe that we actually did go to the moon, but maybe there is enough evidence to suggest that there's something in question there. There's some weird stuff going on. Like there are some weird things that have happened around that as well. But I still do believe we've gone to the moon. Again, I'm not trying to paint myself as somebody who believes in things that they shouldn't, or doesn't believe in things that they should. Whatever. The main thought is we live in this world where a lot of conspiracies seem to be coming true. They were never conspiracy theories at all. They were just hidden truths. And people, the thought that I'm really trying to get across here, and this is why I'm having such a hard time explaining it, markets are all about psychology. Psychology matters. The market is literally what people think. You can see it, what they think. Is something valuable? Is something real? Right? There's a reason why gold is worth so much and fool's gold is not, because people psychologically value something more than the other, right? The real gold is valued far more than fool's gold, right? And we know that. Psychologically speaking, if we had a stock of fool's gold or gold mining, the gold mining stock would probably produce more capital than the fool's gold mining stock. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe there's a market for fool's gold. I don't know. But the point that I'm trying to address is we are the ones that decide that value. We humans are the ones that do that. And in this world where we humans are also aware of conspiracy theories, at the risk of sounding like a madman throughout all this, I want to tie this up right here. I feel like I probably already sound like a madman if I haven't lost you already. I feel like the conspiracy theory of Bitcoin Cash being the real Bitcoin, being the true Bitcoin, that Bitcoin itself was hijacked. It's not really a conspiracy. There's actually evidence of this. And when people start to realize this, again, we have a society, not just in America, but all around the world as human beings, where we literally actively look for conspiracies. Minnesota fraud. Is that true? Is that not true? Oh, hey, it turns out to be true. Like all these kinds of things that we're looking for to validate if they are real or not. The fact the earth is round and there's still a huge cult. There's a brotherhood of flat earthers out there, a brotherhood and a sisterhood, right? And it's certifiably false. We can solve that with mathematics. We can prove that the earth is round with mathematics and calculus, right? That's why anybody who's actually educated knows that the earth is round. And I'm not trying to say that you're not educated if you think the earth is flat, but you're just not educated enough in probably mathematics and physics mainly, right? Any physicist, you're not going to find a single renowned physicist who thinks the world is flat. That doesn't exist, right? And physicists are some of the smartest people in the world. Anyway, at least I think they are. Anyways, I'm getting way off the base here. The thing that I'm trying to say is that the conspiracy theory that Bitcoin Cash is better than Bitcoin, that story is only going to come more and more to life. It's only going to come more and more alive. There are going to be classes, generations of new crypto investors who come into this space who they don't know. Is Bitcoin the real Bitcoin, or is Bitcoin Cash the real Bitcoin? They don't know. And so they're going to look to people like me and like you and people who are educated and who have information on this so-called conspiracy. And you're not just going to have the OGs who were here during the hard fork where Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash hard forked and it was the block size war and everybody's like, oh, Bitcoin Cash is the real one. No, Bitcoin's the real one. And it was one wins, one loses, right? And Bitcoin won, Bitcoin Cash lost in that time frame, right? So now all those people associate Bitcoin Cash with the scam wannabe Bitcoin and Bitcoin with the true Bitcoin. And they don't look anywhere past that. The OGs are typically clouded and they're not open-minded to this thought. But again, that doesn't matter. The OGs make up a very small percentage. And I'm an OG myself, so I know what I'm talking about. I've been in crypto since 2015. Very small percentage of investors. And guess what? You guys, the new class that came in from 2022 to now in crypto, if you came in that time, you're the new class. You're the biggest class in crypto. The next class that comes in, which is going to be the 2026, maybe 2027 to 2030 class, they're going to be the biggest size, and they're going to have questions too, and they're going to be wondering, wait, what's Bitcoin Cash? Why is it worth so much? Why is it pumping, right? And when they ask those questions, they're not going to look it up they're not going to look to the people who've been telling them it's a scam, don't worry about it, don't invest in it, stay away from it, and then it pumps 5x, 10x overnight, right, or in a month or two. They're not going to be looking at them. They're going to be like, okay, they're wrong. They're going to be looking at the people who were pro. They'll be like, why were you pro? Why are you pro Bitcoin Cash to begin with? Oh, it's because you're saying Bitcoin Cash is literally the real Bitcoin. It's the better Bitcoin. Why do you say that? Maybe I should do my own research. Maybe I should look into this. And then as you go down this conspiracy theory rabbit hole of Bitcoin Cash, I think that the world will have an easy time because, again, the world we live in, guys, if this was a game, this life, this reality seems to be based on finding Easter eggs that revolve around conspiracy theories. At least in my opinion, it's much more than that. Life is much more than that. It's much more beautiful. It's much more happy. It's not all about all this BS and stuff. But in this world, in this game, conspiracy theories seem to be real. You know, like for the most part, not all of them, but I think we all know what I'm saying whenever I say conspiracy theorists have the upper hand on anybody who's not a conspiracy theorist for the most part. I don't know how crazy that sounds, and don't take that to heart. Take that with a grain of salt. Take that with a spoonful of salt. Not every conspiracy you hear is true. But as a society, all around the world, I theorize, because so many conspiracies have come true, we as a people have an easier time digesting and accepting conspiracy theories. So there will be people who I think invest in Bitcoin Cash just solely off of that perspective alone, that it could replace Bitcoin. They don't have to be like me or you. They don't have to be a dragon. They don't have to see the light and actually believe that Bitcoin Cash will replace Bitcoin. They just have to believe that it could. They have to believe that other people believe that it could. That narrative, that conspiracy exists, and that in itself will give it enough validity. Because again, conspiracies such as this, being the true Bitcoin, when we're talking about the Mac Daddy crypto in the world, I think that has value, man, and I think that will promote a lot of questions, and people will get answers. And there's a lot of evidence. There's all the evidence in the world that Bitcoin Cash is better than Bitcoin. The only thing that Bitcoin might have on Bitcoin Cash is it, quote unquote, might be more decentralized, or also on top of that, it's more secure because it has a bigger network. Of course it does. But Bitcoin Cash, if Bitcoin Cash was at the same value as Bitcoin, if Bitcoin Cash had the same network as Bitcoin, it'd be just as secure. You know, it's only more secure because it has a higher network, not because the technology's better. It's definitely not because the technology's better. You know what I mean? So Bitcoin Cash, once people catch on to it, guys, man, I went off on the rails there, but once people catch on to it and they start to see, okay, hold on, wait, this is a top 10 crypto. It's been around for a while. People gave up on it, but it's faster than Bitcoin. It's cheaper to what do I mean by faster? I mean, you send it from point A to point B, it gets there faster, dramatically faster. It's cheaper. It's cheaper because the hash fees, the difficulty is lower. Yeah, guess what? If Bitcoin Cash was at the same price with the same volume as Bitcoin, it would still be cheaper to transact. It's the better Bitcoin. By all definitions, it is. Well, Bitcoin was here first. Bitcoin Cash, no. Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin both have the same exact genesis block. They started at the same time. That's how a hard fork works. Bitcoin, BTC, and this is where I think this conspiracy really comes to life, because most people wouldn't say this. If you ask them what's the difference between Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, they would think of it like this. Here's Bitcoin on its straight path going forward, and Bitcoin Cash is this thing that branched off of it. But that's not what happened. Here's Bitcoin. BTC, Bitcoin, Satoshi's Bitcoin, whenever he made it, whenever him and the crypto punks, the cypherpunks, cyberpunks, whatever, they made it. Okay, it was Bitcoin. It was going, and then we had the block wars, and what that was not Bitcoin Cash branching off of Bitcoin. That was BTC and BCH becoming something different. BCH tried to keep the BTC name, but they had less people. They had a lower voting power, so they didn't get the name. BTC kept the name because it had the voting power. That doesn't mean that people were right just because they're voting on that, but that means that the money or the people who are in charge or in control at the time, they were the ones that got the say, right? And by this time, this was 2017, the institutions were already in Bitcoin, guys. Institutions were already in Bitcoin. So people like you and me, retail investors, our say doesn't matter. The people with money, the miners, and the people who are funding these mining operations, they're the ones that get the say. So Bitcoin went there. But again, Bitcoin BTC is equivalent in Bitcoin Cash in the sense that they are both of them are hard forks off each other. The better one is Bitcoin Cash, and it's undeniable. And if you don't think that it's the better one, I would say to you that you probably don't know anything about it. It's the same thing I say to people about Bitcoin. The only people that don't like crypto are the people who don't know anything about it. The only people who think Bitcoin is better than Bitcoin Cash are probably people who don't know much about it. And the only people who think that Bitcoin's better than Bitcoin Cash, that they're becoming a dying breed. And the price action will start to speak for that, and that will really start to bring to life this grand conspiracy that Bitcoin Cash is the real Bitcoin, that it was dethroned, that Bitcoin was hijacked, that this is the real Bitcoin. And I don't know how much sense I made, but I just in a nutshell, in short, what I'd like to say is, again, to try to make it pretty. I feel like I did a really bad job of it earlier. I went down all these different distracting rabbit holes, and I'm kind of doing it right now. So let's just get back to the point. Bitcoin Cash is the real Bitcoin. That conspiracy, that theory in itself, I think will draw questions and attention to it. Some people will be like, that sounds like a scam. I've heard that before. But again, this one's different, guys. It's in the top 10. It's been in the top 20 for most of its life. It's seen the worst, and it's come back. It's been outperforming Bitcoin for over a year now. It's been outperforming the average crypto for over a year now. There's something to this, man. There's something to this. And I think the narrative of Bitcoin Cash being the real Bitcoin, that narrative could, and this is what started me on this whole journey, could be enough to, from here, when we break out, it could send us all the way up to 10K. Like, if that narrative really gets accepted, you guys, the more robust this move is, the more that we know that nation states, governments around the world, venture capitalists, I want to just say, I guess venture capitalists, yeah, people with deep pockets, individual investors, that they're accepting the same narrative. That they're like, okay, hold on, they're coming around to the conspiracy theory. Because conspiracy theorists, for what it's worth, if this was a scoreboard, they got the upper hand. Typically in this world. Not the flat earthers. And maybe not even the fake mooners. Maybe. I don't know, man. I don't know. I've always thought the moon landing was real. But again, if you're open-minded, you should be open-minded. You should not automatically get offended or upset at something that challenges your beliefs. You should be open-minded and willing to accept that you could be wrong. I think that's something that anybody with a rational mind does. So I accept that I could be wrong. I still think the moon landing was real. I still think, again, like Neil deGrasse Tyson would say, how do you get all these people in NASA, all the thousands of people that did this, how do you get them all to collaborate together to keep this hush-hush secret? They couldn't do it with 9/11, and there were a lot less people involved then, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. They couldn't do it with a lot of things. Human beings are actually very bad at keeping secrets, especially the juicier they are. It's just, I don't know. But there's a lot of evidence. Again, I'm speaking here. There's plenty of people that could speak and contest a lot of things that I would say are evident that we did land on the moon. I'm getting distracted. I'm not trying to talk about that again. We can talk about conspiracies all day, maybe on a live stream or something. But again, the main thought here is, because we have this narrative where Bitcoin Cash is the real Bitcoin, there really is a chance that we could rip all the way up to 10K. I don't think we do. That'd be great. I'm not betting against it. I wouldn't bet on it. But I would at least expect from here that we go to about $3,650, maybe up to $5,500, something in this area. That's my expectation. If we go here, it basically validates, and I would even say going here validates as well, but it really validates here at 10K everything that I was just saying, that people are really starting to buy into this narrative. And narratives are everything, you guys. Narratives are everything. And again, I think that's really the thing that I'm trying to address here. That's what I'm trying to address in this whole video, is that narratives are very important. And if you think about it, really, the best narrative that there possibly could be for any crypto that exists is Bitcoin's narrative. It's Bitcoin's narrative. The only way to make that better would be if Bitcoin wasn't Bitcoin. If Bitcoin, the real Bitcoin, the better Bitcoin, was somehow cheaper, and it was misunderstood and misvalued and mishandled, and it got hijacked, and people were lied to about the lineage and the truth and the history of Bitcoin and what it's supposed to be, what Satoshi wanted it to be, what the devs, the true core crypto believers in the beginning, the hardcore, like, anti-bank, trustless system, decentralized warriors of this financial planet, what they believe. When people start getting on board with that, things will be different, man. I don't know. Things will be different. I forget where I was going with that, but I got a little carried away with myself. I don't know why, but I'm having a hard time keeping my thoughts in order. But anyways, hit that like button, subscribe. Thank you all for being here. I do believe we're going to see some phenomenal growth, and I do believe that we have, again, the idea there I got distracted from was we have the best narrative. We have the best narrative out of any crypto. Bitcoin Cash is the better Bitcoin. It's not lesser. The only thing it's lesser in is price. And by default, because of that hash power, you know what I mean, like network security. But once it has the higher price, it will have the higher security. The higher its price goes, the higher its security goes. The higher its price goes, the more hash power it has. Technically, that's not an obligation of truth, but that will happen. That's a matter. It will happen. The higher up the price goes, the more security we'll see with Bitcoin Cash. It doesn't have to be that way, but it will happen. Anyways, I got nothing else for you guys. Hit that like button, subscribe. Thank you all for being here. Rambling is over. Bye bye.